Hello, you amazing people. It is Rx8 here with another video, and we are back with the slightly boosted Miata. And yes, I know you guys absolutely hate me saying that and just want to see this car boosted. I know, I do too. But we have half of our intercooler piping done. We have half of our water lines done. For God's sakes, we have half of our turbo. And yeah, because we have only done half of just about everything, and then something has come up to a point where we can't finish the other part of it, we have a lot of things on our list that are half done, but we can't check off because they're not done. But let's make that a little bit better and finish our injectors. Well, not finish, but do our injectors. When you add more air, you need to add more fuel. When you add more air and fuel, you make more power. So we're adding air by our turbo, but we're on stock injectors right now. So what we're going to do is we're going to take these old 220cc injectors out and replace them with Rx8 yellow top injectors, which to my knowledge are anywhere from like, I think they're 440 or they're 420 cc's. But these injectors need a rebuild, so we also bought a rebuild kit, so we're going to be going through the processes. So we're going to be going through the process of how to rebuild these injectors. The injectors are right here in this bag, and I finished one, that's why there's a marking on it. And here's the rest of the rebuild kit. So we have 3 injectors to rebuild, and it's honestly really easy, and then 4 of them to install. All you really need to install injectors is a hammer, a screw, and probably a pair of vice grips. Oh, and of course injectors and injector O-ring, and of course injectors and injector rebuild kit. So I guess let's go ahead and get into it. So rebuilding these injectors is honestly a very easy process. To a point, it's easy to a point where your boy can do it. I rebuilt this injector and it looks great besides it just being dirty, compared to something like this injector, okay, they all look the same, but when you look at them close, you can see the differences. Like I said, all you're gonna need for this install is a screw, a screwdriver, which, wait, I actually didn't say you needed, a hammer, and a pair of vice grips. So I guess let's actually get into it. So first off, we're going to start off by tearing down the injector. So we just take off all the O-rings. There's one on the top, one on the bottom that I already took off and didn't show you, and another ring right there. So now that's all 3 of our O-rings, but you can see there's still this nozzle. And now these nozzles get very jacked up over time, and when they're exposed to long heat, they can warp and mess up and crack, so we're going to be replacing them with fresh new ones. So to get them off, you're simply just going to take a pair of vice grips, wrap it around, and twist it off. And it comes off, honestly, reasonably easy. Then you're going to take a new one, and you're going to slide it on. Now this is noticeably harder. Just make sure you have like a table or something and just press it into the table. It may take a little bit of a beating to get on. Make sure it's going on even and straight, and if you need, you can just put the injector flat down and tap it on with a hammer. Now injectors are pretty sensitive, so don't hit hard. Take your time, be slow with it, and press it in. And that is that one on. So now for pretty much the hardest part of this, which still isn't that hard, we're going to take a screw, which fits into the filter on the top of this injector. Before I take that out, let me give you an understanding of how it... Before I take that out, let me give you a visual. So, like I said, there is a filter that looks just like this. It will go into the injector right there, so whatever gets past your fuel filter, and make sure it is not injected into the rest of your injector and into your engine. So there's that little filter right there just to catch all the small little particles. And in the injector, there's a solenoid which will open and close, which then will squirt fuel out of these nozzles into the engine. You don't want any leaks or you don't want any clogs, because otherwise it will absolutely kill your injector. So if you're rebuilding used injectors, I would say replace that filter. It's going to make sure there is no sediment in it and make sure you're getting the most amount of fuel through your injector. So you get a screw that's pretty similarly sized. Make sure that fits in there snug, and then you're going to take a screwdriver and you're going to screw it in. You want to get it pretty tight in there, and once you start feeling it grab hard, and you should just be able to pull it out. Now here comes the vice grips again. You're just going to grab onto them, and you're going to pull the filter out. So we finally got that old filter out, and it was a little bit of a process for that one, to say the least. It took a lot of pulling. I ended up putting vice grips on the ground with the screw in it, like that, and then just pulling as hard as I can, and it came out. It's a lot easier if you have a vice. I have a vice. I just wanted to prove that you can do it without one. Just make sure you have vice grips. But we got it out. Now we're going to clean it out with carb cleaner, and then we'll go ahead and reinstall the new filter and put all the O-rings on it. Now that we have our old filter out and it's all cleaned up, we're going to take our new one and press it in. Now this again can be a little bit of process, and now that's fully seated and flush, we can go and install our new O-rings. So we're going to start off with the first O-ring down here at the bottom. We simply just slide that on, and that is the solid O-ring that looks like that. Now we're moving up to the top, and we're going to get out this O-ring which has the slit down the middle. We simply slide that down, and then we grab one of these small O-rings and we put that over the top. And that is one fully rebuilt injector. And now we just repeat the process for the rest of our injectors. Okay, so now that the injectors are done, it's actually time to install them in the car. But first we gotta do a couple things. Your fuel rail is filled with high pressure fuel. So how do we dissipate that pressure? Well, simply we're gonna take out the fuse for our fuel pump, either under the dash or in the fuse box. I personally am just going to do mine under the dash. And then crank over the engine a couple times. Make sure we take out these towels so we don't consume them. We'll crank over the engine a couple times. They'll go and depressurize our fuel system. And then we'll simply just undo our gas cap. Oh, having a quick release with bucket seats is so nice. Now that we have our fuel pump relay out, we can just crank over the engine. And now we pop our trunk. I mean, we pop our gas cap. I don't know why that's so hard in pretty much every Miata. And we just unscrew our gas cap, and that's gonna make sure our fuel system isn't pressurized. All we're really gonna need for this is an 8mm, a 12mm, and a pair of pliers. So we're gonna start off by taking this PCV valve, that took way too long to say, hose off, so then we can actually have a little bit more wiggle room. Now we're going to take off the hose on our fuel pressure regulator. Then we lose our 8mm apparently. Then we're going to take our 8mm. And we're going to take off this valve, I forget what it is. But we're simply just going to take off these couple 8mm. One of those is very hard to get with a normal 8mm, so we're going to get a wrench on it. Okay, now we can actually just scoot in there and pop it off. If you don't already have ratcheting wrenches, you're missing out on life. These things are absolutely amazing. But just know, once you use them, there's no going back. Okay, so now that that's off, we're just simply going to move that out of the way. We're also going to take a shop towel, and we're going to stuff it into here. And here. And that will just prevent anything from getting into it. And we shall do the same thing for the intake. Okay, so now that both those holes are plugged, we can go ahead and grab our 12mm. And there's two bolts holding the fuel rail on, one here and one there. Simply just crack them loose. Go ahead and get ready with the shop towel. There's still going to be some residual fuel. Then we can just pull our fuel rail off. And that will give us just enough room to get these injectors out. But before that, we want to shove our fuel rail back in. So we're going to go ahead and unplug all the injectors. There's simply just one clip and there's a pin on them. You're going to pull that pin up and then slide the whole pigtail off. Do that for all four. It's honestly very easy. Now our whole fuel rail can just come out, well, at least most of the way. And now you can wiggle these injectors out. There isn't much room to do it, but you can work them out. Then we can pull our injectors out. Now we have all four injectors out, and look how clunky these things are. Now you can see some of these are missing the O-ring. And yeah, we gotta make sure we dig those out and there's no O-rings in their spot. And God, look how bad these injector O-rings are. These things are practically solid. Also, look how clunky these injectors are. For a Miata owner, it's like 0.5 grams. We could at least gain like 0.0002 horsepower, which means the world to us. And now that these old injectors are out, we can put the fancy new Rx8 ones in. Now the install is just as easy as taking them out. We're simply just going to drag and drop these in. But first, we do want to make sure we lube up these O-rings so they don't slip out. You can use spit, that normally works very well. You can use a small amount of lubricant like WD-40, just spraying on your finger and rubbing it on the O-ring. Anything will work. So we lube up the O-rings and we're just going to chuck them in. So that's 1, that's 2, that's 3, and that is our 4th and final injector. Now you're going to get back out these spacers, make sure you do not lose them. You're going to put them between the fuel rail and the actual intake itself. Then you're going to drop your fuel rail down, make sure you're having all the injectors go into the holes. They all line up great, so now we just chuck back in the bolts. So snug them up but not fully tighten them so there's still some wiggle room to get your pigtails back on. Now we just simply plug back in the injectors. Now we can actually snug the fuel rail back down. Make sure you're being even and these are seating properly. Now we're going to torque these down to 19 foot-pounds. Install this valve back, make sure you put the O-ring back on. Now we can put it back on our PCV hose, then our fuel pressure regulator hose, and now we simply just go and put in our relay, and now we simply just put in the relay / fuse for our fuel pump, and then we'd start it, but yeah, the turbo's not on the car, so we can't do that. But before you start it, you have to go into your tuning program of choice, which for most Miatas is Tuner Studios. And then you're going to change the injector size to 420 cc's. Once you do that, it should run and drive great. Now, yes, I can't do that yet because the turbo's not in, but I'm really excited to test these brand new Rx8 yellow top injectors. So, it's simple as that. We have the Rx8 yellow top injectors in. Well, it's not as simple as that. We do have to go and change the tune a little bit, but otherwise, it's done. So now we just gotta chuck in the rest of our turbo stuff that's like half done, and we'll have a turbocharged car. Then we gotta disregard all of that and drop the transmission so we can put our brand new competition clutch and flywheel in. But if you've learned anything from this video or just purely enjoyed it, like, subscribe, follow, all that good stuff. It would mean the absolute world to me and help you. It would mean the absolute world to me and help me a lot more than you could know. So I hope you guys all have a great day. See you guys all next time. Peace out.